Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Crypto and Coffee. Cheers. We have a lot to discuss. Today, let's set some expectations. One, we are going to discuss this fork for Bitcoin. What is Segwit2x and why is it important? Secondly, we're going to discuss this kind of fork cycle that we're going through and how to take advantage of it. And lastly, I'm hearing some pretty big rumors that we will discuss at the end of the video. So, without further ado, let's jump in. First, what is Segwit2x? I'll pretend for a moment that no one has any understanding of Segwit and start from the beginning. On August 24th, Segwit was activated. Well, what is Segwit? Well, in order to understand that, we need to understand a Bitcoin transaction. Bitcoin transaction is made up of two parts. The first part includes your sender, your amount, and your recipient. Pretty much a standard transaction. The second part is what we call a signature or a witness. Segwit. What does that mean? Segregated witness. This witness portion of the transaction can at times take up to 60% of the information stored within a transaction. So, if Bitcoin is having a problem with speed and scaling, what better way than to remove the witness portion of the transaction and basically double the volume that each block can hold? That's the idea behind Segwit. Now, what's the idea behind Segwit2x? Well, many people have different opinions on how best to scale Bitcoin. And Segwit2x wants to not only implement Segwit, but increase the block size. Currently, the block size is 1 megabyte. Segwit2x would increase that size to 8 megabytes. It's very controversial because there's many different opinions here, but most controversial is their way they're going about it. Now, when we've seen other forks, for example, the Bitcoin Cash fork, replay protection was implemented before the fork. And what that essentially means is there's protections in place, so when the chains split, you won't be spending money on one chain and the other, because the protocols are the same, the addresses are the same. So potentially, when we have this split, you could make a transaction on the BTC chain and it would be valid on the Segwit2x chain. That's a huge problem. And so far, Segwit2x has refused to implement replay protection. So, what does this mean for us? Well, do not send any Bitcoin for, I would say, up to a day, if not longer. We'll have to cycle back and touch on this to see how the fork goes. But do not send any Bitcoin whatsoever after this fork. The fork is scheduled to take place somewhere in November, sometime in mid-November. Can't give you an exact date because they don't do it by a date, they do it by an actual block. So do not send Bitcoin post-fork. Make sure you also have your Bitcoin on a wallet or on a hardware device so that you have access to both coins should they survive. There's a decent likelihood that one of these coins is going to die off. Potentially, and most likely, Segwit2x may die off pretty quickly. That's my opinion. You may hear different opinions. So, keep this in mind over the next month that as we get closer to this fork, you need to make preparations. A couple things will happen, in my opinion. One, you're going to see an increase, pretty dramatic increase in the price of Bitcoin. People love forks. We've seen it 3 times. This will be the third. Bitcoin Cash, we saw people move into Bitcoin in order to get that extra coin. We just saw it with Bitcoin Gold. I mean, Bitcoin Gold is, I don't want to say, it's not an important coin. And we just saw a huge increase and spike in Bitcoin's price because people wanted this coin. So This fork is pretty important. I don't know if both chains will survive, but I would bet that we're going to see a pretty hefty increase in the price of Bitcoin. So, just to recap, what do you need to do? First, get your coins on a wallet or a hardware device before the fork. Second, do not send any Bitcoin for at least a day, if not longer, until we see a clear winner of this fork. And again, that's because there's no replay protection implemented. So those are the two things you need to be conscientious of, which leads us directly into our next topic, this fork cycle. What is a fork cycle? Well, I just touched on that every time we have a fork, we see an increase in Bitcoin's price. People start moving to Bitcoin because they want access to this additional coin. Now, it's artificially increasing the price of Bitcoin, and it's also artificially holding down the price of altcoins. So over the next 3 weeks here, what you can expect is a pretty hefty increase in the price of Bitcoin. Altcoins will bleed more so than they already have. And it's my opinion that post-fork, you're going to see Bitcoin sell off considerably and altcoins actually take off. Now, we didn't see this with the Bitcoin Cash fork, but we did see it with the Bitcoin Gold fork. Now, two conflicting pieces of data there, which leads me to my third topic today, rumors. So, what is a fork cycle? Well, we've been through a few of these already. We've had Bitcoin Cash, we've had Bitcoin Gold. Now we're going to have Segwit2x. In December, we're going to have Bitcoin Silver. Forks are becoming the new ICO. But there's opportunity to be had here. So let's think about Bitcoin Cash. What happened there? Well, Bitcoin Cash it ran up a little bit before the fork and then took off directly after the fork. With Bitcoin Gold, we saw something a little different. We saw a bigger run up, and then immediately after, we saw a huge sell off, and we saw alts take off about 10, 20, 30%. So what can we expect for Segwit2x? Well, it's my opinion that the previous run up with Bitcoin Gold was not 100% because of that. It also included the upcoming Segwit2x fork. And it's my opinion that after this Segwit2x fork, we're going to see a pretty big sell-off in Bitcoin. And we're going to see alt recover quite a bit. Yeah. All right, guys, what is a fork cycle? Well, unless you haven't been paying attention, forks have become the new ICO. We've had Bitcoin Cash, we've had Bitcoin Gold, we're going to have Bitcoin Silver in December, and in a couple of weeks, we're going to have Segwit2x. Every time we have a fork, we see a pretty substantial run-up in Bitcoin, and we also see a pretty substantial reduction in price of altcoins. So over the next 2 weeks, you guessed it, I'm expecting Bitcoin to run. I wouldn't be surprised if we see 7,500 or 8,000 with Bitcoin. Yes, I'm not kidding. Bitcoin is going to run. I believe alts are going to bleed pretty heavily here. Now, it's not that I'm a fortune teller. We've seen this many times, and history has a tendency to repeat itself. So if you want to position yourself well for this, I would move more of your holdings to Bitcoin. Buy the dip. We always say buy the dip. Next time you see a dip in Bitcoin, sell some of your alts to Bitcoin. Now, right after this Segwit2x fork, I expect a lot of volatility. Not only do I expect volatility, I expect alts to actually rebound quite strongly, and I expect Bitcoin to sell off. What gives me that opinion? Well, in the previous fork, Bitcoin Gold, we saw Bitcoin immediately sell off post fork, and we saw alts rally substantially, although it was short-lived, only for a couple days. Now, it's of my opinion that all of these forks with Bitcoin are actually artificially holding down the price of altcoins. People want new coins. They're moving to Bitcoin simply to get this new coin, and because when Bitcoin rallies, it crushes all alts. So what happens when we run out of forks? I expect altcoins to make quite a substantial recovery. So here's my play. Feel free to do it if you want. I am going to move most of my holdings into Bitcoin, and post fork, I am going to move most of them into altcoins. Now, I could be wrong, and you need to be very hands-on with this type of trade, because in the previous fork with Bitcoin Cash, we saw Bitcoin take off. We saw about a 60% increase in the price of Bitcoin after that fork. So we have two conflicting pieces of information here, but I believe the most recent is the most relevant, and that's what happened after the Bitcoin Gold fork. So if you want to make a play here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have most of the holdings in Bitcoin and then immediately go to alts. Some of the alts that I like, obviously Ethereum is a good choice. I don't think Litecoin is the best choice. Personally, I love Litecoin, but it tends to act more like Bitcoin, and it didn't recover as well post-fork previously. So I'm not going to look at that one. I love Monero long-term, so I will look to buy any dips with Monero. I also am a fan of Zcoin, Ardor, and this next part leads us to the rumors I'm hearing. The rumors I'm hearing are China. Rumors are in middle of November, they will make an announcement that they will be re-entering the crypto world and reopening exchanges. So what does that mean? NEO, gas, ETP, big time upside. So those are my plays. That's what I think the next month is going to look like. Good luck, guys.